have, I hope, a little team here ready to show you how to make the filling. We have two versions. One is regular pork and one is vegan. Showing you the vegan option will be Braden, my son. And if you are vegetarian and you prefer to use egg instead of the flax egg, you can do so. But I hope that everyone's already chopping, because chopping is a little bit time consuming. There are 3 steps to making the filling, which is this half hour. Chop, salt the cabbage, and mix everything. And the way you prepare the cabbage, the texture of cabbage that you want to prepare is very fine like this, finely chopped. So if you have not yet started chopping, please start. You want to wash your vegetables, of course, before you chop them. And then Jackie will have some techniques that he wants to share with you. But please go ahead and get started. And then while I do some administrative stuff, Braden, can you sort of work on just sort of chopping a little bit? I believe this is how Jackie does it. I'll turn this down onto so you can see what we're doing here. So basically, he cuts it into strips. You have to be very careful not to hit your head, and so chop, chop, chop. No, you can talk about it. You can talk about what you do. Oh, bring.
We have people asking in the chat, can we use other greens like pak choi or cabbage?
Sure. Thank you, Wendy.
That's what I'm using. I'm using this is not Chinese cabbage. This is the Irish kind, the St. Patrick's Day kind. So that's what I'm using. Yes, you can absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
Yeah. So actually, you don't need to. Okay. So the chopping of the carrots. Is anyone here working on vegan? If so, can you please put it in the chat? Vegan or vegetarian? I know Mary's doing vegetarian. Okay, great, perfect. Can you talk about the flax egg? How to make a flax egg?
Do one?
Yes. So when you do vegetarian cooking, you can use regular eggs, depending upon the kind of vegetarian you are. But if you're vegan, it's all plant-based, and so you use flax to make your egg. And the flax is used to make a binder. So describe, please.
Okay. So there's a few options you can use to substitute for eggs. Flax, I would think, is probably the most appropriate for this recipe. But you could also use like chia seeds. They also sell commercial egg replacers specifically for that are powdered. The recipe is all the same for them though, whatever sort of solid you use for it. So basically it's 1 tablespoon of either flax or chia or egg replacer, and then 2 to 3 tablespoons of water. I usually do 3. And then you just want to let that sit for a few minutes. So I will do that now. And then it will thicken up over time. It'll become a little bit gummy, and then help you bind stuff. So 1 tablespoon of flax in this case, and then plenty of water. Mix it up a little bit, and that's it. All right, so there it is, I guess. We just let that sit. If you use flax seeds, you'll often see it already ground up as something like flaxseed meal. If you buy whole flax seeds, it may work. You do want to blend them up though, so your body can like digest it. And I don't know, it might work better than if it were not ground. But yeah, if you use chia seeds, you don't need to grind those up.
So you're making one. How long does it sit right in?
I don't know, a few minutes, just until we need it.
Okay, if you are working on the regular pork version, you will need 3 cups of Napa cabbage. If you are working on the vegetarian version, you will need half cup of shredded Napa. I think we're going to do a double portion so we can freeze them. So we'll use a whole cup.
Okay, how many eggs we need then?
Oh, 2.
2. Okay, so since we're doing 2, I'll just double that.
And measure out a cup of the
Extra flour, you got flour too.
I'd like to make a question or have a comment, whatever. It seems to me that these proportions are kind of loose and you can adjust things the way you, according to what you have on hand or what you think you might like the taste of. Is that correct?
This is the wrong taste.
it seems like that to me. I think, with any filling, right? You're able to season, adjust. You kind of, if you're new to it, you follow the recipe. And then if you have a little experience or you're a little bit more comfortable in the kitchen, then there you go. Have at it.
For the Napa cabbage, do we have to cut out the middle part or is it okay to leave that in?
You mean the hard part like this?
Yeah.
So we discussed that, and everybody who does this uses this part also.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I saw a couple of questions in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, you just call it small, you just cut it small, right?
I'm trying to see if my friends are here because I have a lot of friends.
Okay. So the flax egg is cooking, quote unquote cooking. And the cabbages are making cabbage. Green onions. So then you just want to chop all of your things that need to be chopped. At some point, we are going to start salting our cabbage. And I'm going to give you guys enough time to get enough into it, but the cabbage, just so you know, needs an extra step of being salted. And what that will do is it will take about 10 minutes of sitting once we get the salt in there. So you will need to have your cabbage chopped first. So in case you were wondering about order of chopping, if you're cutting green onions and things like that, do the cabbage first. Thanks.
What is the purpose of salting the cabbage?
Yeah, why are we salting the cabbage?
Yeah, so salting the cabbage helps draw out water. It's actually a 2-part for salting the cabbage. Number 1, it concentrates the flavor of the cabbage. Number 2, it draws out excess moisture, so your filling won't be excessively wet when we wrap the dumplings.
Yeah, I've done it before without salting the cabbage.
Oh, please, there's like 30 of them around the house.
and it was not pretty.
Oh, okay.
Very runny filling. So
How
definitely
small?
recommended.
Excuse me, how small do we cut the cabbage? And
Jackie, feel free to take over.
Yeah, for the cabbage, just try to get it as small as you can, because you don't want the mixture to be too chunky. That will also make wrapping the dumplings a little difficult. But because we're salting the cabbage, it will soften the cabbage up a little bit. So if you can't get the cabbage pieces, like as small as you would like it, you can squeeze it to size later. But as you can see, from the cabbage that we've pared, you're just trying to cut it as small as possible. So you can liken it to almost like dicing an onion. So as small as you can.
Jackie, there's a question. What size should the green onions be?
Oh yes, the green onions also as small as you can. So when you make the mixture, you're just trying to get the filling to be as smooth as you can. So green onions are relatively straightforward. You just cut down and try to reduce the size of the pieces as much as possible.
Great.
So, hey, everybody, we need to do a quick social media shot. And for most of you, we're looking at your face. If you're on your iPad or phone or whatever you're on, if you're chopping, will you tilt your machine so we could see your workspace? And let's count to 3 and we'll take a picture and then we can go back to where we were. So is everyone able to show their space, show their workspace? That's beautiful, beautiful. Oh, beautiful, nice. I see frozen dumplings. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's gonna be our working space shot. Thanks, everyone. Sorry, Trish.
No, that was super. Thank you, Wendy, for remembering.
Yep.
Jackie, may I interject a little bit? We want to talk about the tofu preparation. So we have firm tofu. You could use firm or extra firm. And Braden will share with you how to prepare the tofu. As with the cabbage, you want to make sure you get out as much water as you can.
Okay, so to get the moisture out of tofu, what most recipes will recommend that you do in any circumstance, because less water in the tofu will help it absorb whatever liquid it's in, the flavor from that. I typically don't. I usually just like kind of cut a slit in it and then just press my hands together and drain whatever comes out easily. But if you wanted to do it more thoroughly, I know like they sell dedicated tofu presses. You could also put some like paper towels on top of it and then lay something heavy like a tray and some books or something like that, or a tray of water. Whatever you have on hand that is heavy and flat, that'll help get some of the moisture out. And you probably want to put something else absorbent underneath as well so that it, the water doesn't get everywhere.
Do you want to show how you do it? I'll turn the thing around.
So there.
Yeah. Now we're going to look at our sink. There are Braden's hands.
Okay, so this is what I usually do. You may want to do something a little bit more thorough for these dumplings if you don't want them to get all soggy, I guess. But this is what I would do normally. I haven't tried it with this, so I can't speak to.
So I would like to clarify, Jackie is our expert in making dumplings here. Braden is the vegan expert, and he is adapting and explaining the vegan recipe. So specific to dumpling making, some of his experiences untested. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, so that would be pretty much what I would do. Some people, some recipes do say to like cook it on a frying pan, and that'll help, of course, get some more liquid out when it heats. If you want to do that, you could.
Okay.
Something else, I guess, is that we're crumbling the tofu, so it doesn't need to be whole. So you could be, if you wanted to do this method that I'm doing, and be a little rougher with it, it's okay if it splits because we're gonna intentionally crumble it again anyway.
Then, do you have anything to say, Braden, about the flavor of the tofu?
Yeah, so tofu is by itself pretty bland. So if you wanted it to be more flavorful, we are gonna put it in like soy sauce and other things that will add flavor. But what I found is that just cooking tofu with other things around it doesn't usually help the tofu itself get that much flavor. So I've gotten best results when I let it marinate in a mixture of like soy sauce and I don't know, salt or it already has salt, pepper, things like that. I guess whatever seasonings. And if you let that sit for a little bit, that will help. At the very least, you can mix the tofu with the soy sauce and all that before, so that it gets a little bit more on the tofu than the other stuff, and then mix everything else together. That would probably help a little more than just putting it all together at once.
Right. So with the seasonings that are in the recipe, what he's suggesting is you just you crumble the tofu after you've pressed the water out of it, and put the seasonings directly into the tofu, but do not add the other things as yet. Do not add the cabbage or the carrots as yet. So Jackie, thank you so much. Back to you.
We have a question in the chat. How do you salt the cabbage? Do you sprinkle it or put it in salt water?
Yes, so I can demonstrate salting the cabbage right now. So what I have right here is the bowl of cabbage. This is a little bit more than 3 cups, but this will serve our purpose. I have here is table salt, so regular iodized table salt. For anyone who might be using kosher salt, the crystals are bigger, so you'll need to use more to get the same saltiness. But I'm just using table salt here. Just go ahead and sprinkle into the cabbage. Just make sure that there's enough, for each for all the cabbage. I estimate about 1 teaspoon to maybe 1.5 teaspoon. And once you're done, sprinkling salt into the cabbage, you're gonna want to either take a hand or use your fork, and you're gonna want to mix it up. Just toss it around, almost like you're seasoning the cabbage, because you are. And then once you've gotten it tossed around, the salt is liberally spread throughout the cabbage. You're going to want to set it aside. Once you've gotten the salt through the cabbage, what the salt will do is it starts to break down, the cabbage, and all the water will start leaking out. So we'll let this sit for about 5 minutes, and then all the liquid will come out. And you'll see that after 5 minutes, the cabbage will be a lot softer too, and we'll be able to squeeze out a lot of the water. So that at this point, the cabbage should be prepared to go, and then I'll go ahead and start getting the rest of the ingredients for the pork filling together. Just a quick rundown for the pork. Just know that we're also adding green onion. So again, try to get your green onion as fine as possible. I have some green onion right here. Just get that as fine as possible. It's not precise, but you just got to get it as fine as possible. And we'll also be getting ginger, and we'll be mincing ginger or grating ginger as well. I do see some. Okay, I see 2 questions in the chat. Yes, about the cabbage salt procedure. Once you have the diced cabbage, just sprinkle salt in there, about 1 teaspoon, right? And just either get your hand in there or take a fork, something, just to mix it up. Make sure that it's mixed up well. And then at that point, the salt will start to break down the cabbage, and all the liquid will start to come out. But I do see a question about jackfruit. Does anyone want to go ahead and take that question? Should I hand that back over to Braden?
Yes. Can someone call out the question?
Can you tell us about the jackfruit?
Okay.
Who wants to talk about the jackfruit?
Okay, so you can find jackfruit in a few forms. If you're gonna want to use it, if you want to use it for something like this, you want to make sure that it's like something like this where it says young green, something unripe. because jackfruit is a fruit and it does get sweet, and you wouldn't really want that if you want to use it to substitute a meat. But when it's unripe, it kind of resembles the texture of pulled pork, and it is like tofu, pretty bland, so will absorb whatever flavors you season it with. And you can kind of press it a little bit and make it a little bit more stringy, like pulled pork would be. So that's a pretty common substitute. If you wanted to use it for that, I would kind of do the same thing as tofu, marinate it or at least mix it with whatever flavors you want to use before you use it.
So for the person who asked that question, are you going to be working on jackfruit? Because we would love to see what you've got at the end. Is that Heidi? Thank you so much, Heidi. Go ahead and do it and let's see at the end. We decided here in this kitchen that we could only handle one thing at a time. So we decided to go with the easier version, the one that people might be most prepared for. But if you have any questions about jackfruit, just let us know and we'll put Braden on it. Thank you, Braden. Back to you, Jackie.
So, at this point, I'm just preparing the rest of the ginger. I'm just mincing the ginger. As you can see, I have the ginger sliced up into these wide slices, and then I'm just cutting them into first strips and then mincing them further. And then at this point, we'll be combining all the ingredients together for the pork mixture. Before I go ahead and go into the pork mixture and I'm finishing up this ginger, does anyone have any questions about the pork? Or perhaps the cabbage or any other ingredients regarding the pork mixture? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move forward with the
Hey, Brayden. So I maybe missed some parts. Did you say for the filling, we need to chop all the green onions and get some ginger ready?
Yeah, the recipe is here.
So, okay.
Oh, are you talking about for the vegetarian or vegan?
Oh, no.
Oh, so you want to talk to Jackie then?
Oh,
Jackie's
okay,
doing
sorry.
the pork version.
Okay, sorry. How do I talk to Jackie?
Any questions about the pork mixture?
Okay.
Do you need to marinate the pork beforehand and for how long?
No need to marinate the pork because the mixture will, be sitting out when we're preparing the wrappers. So that will be ample time enough to marinate the pork. So let me go ahead and move forward with the mixture of the pork then. Now that we're on the topic, so give me 1 second, and I will hand down to what I am doing.
Jackie, how much ginger did you put it in?
I listed about three teaspoons, I believe, on the recipe. If you like more of a ginger flavor, feel free to add some more. But I will say the ginger is quite important because it gets out that gamey, meaty flavor of the pork. So ginger is an important ingredient. I personally, I don't mind the sharp taste of ginger too badly, so I like to use more. But I would say 3 teaspoons is the minimum. 3 teaspoons, about a tablespoon.
And I have to agree with what Jackie just said about ginger taking out that gaminess on the pork. I've done all the cheats, like not salting the cabbage, not putting in ginger, and it's not good when you do a pork. So thank you, Jackie, for doing that.
So Jackie, we had a question in the chat. So if they don't use pork, can they use turkey? And if they are using turkey, is there anything she should do differently?
Oh, no. You can use any meat. So pork is just the traditional, main filling. I've used ground chicken before. Works perfectly fine. I've made turkey before, and it works fine as well. And you just add the ingredients just the same. It's the same. It's the same procedure. Meat typically has the same process.
Okay, thank you. Because I was worried if it wasn't fatty enough or something like that.
Oh, no problem. Typically, like dumpling meat and stuff should have a little bit more fat, but it's definitely not a problem if it's a little bit more lean. It's just a texture difference. Okay, so what I have right here is the ground pork. And this is our base. So, but as we just noted, some of you might have other types of ground meat. As long as it's ground, it'll work. So what I'll do now right, is I will go ahead and add this ginger. So I have some minced ginger right here on the board, and I'll just add that directly in. Again, the ginger is to take out the gaminess of the meat. So
Jackie, we have a question. Can we use ground ginger if we do not have fresh ginger?
Yes, if you can use ground ginger, just be aware that ground ginger tends to be a little bit more sharp, and it tends to have an earthier flavor. So be careful when adding the ground ginger. I would say add perhaps 1 teaspoon at most of ground ginger because of the sharp ginger taste. But you know, it serves the same purpose. All right, so now that we have the ginger added, just go ahead and give it a good mix. And I'm gonna go ahead and save the cabbage for last, just because, you know, it's still sitting out. We still need, you know, the water to be taken out. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of the seasoning ingredients for the pork mixture. So what I have here is salt, right? As I noted, I'll be adding about 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt, depending on your salt intake. If you're using kosher salt, feel free to use 3 to 4 teaspoons, just because kosher salt has different properties. But I'm going to go ahead and add about, you know, 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'll go ahead and give it a good mix as I'm doing that as well. And as noted, this will be, you know, the marinating period. So as this sits, you know, with all the seasonings and whatnot, it'll marinate, so to speak. So adding a little bit more salt. All right, and then now I'm gonna move forward to adding some white pepper. So white pepper is a traditional Chinese ingredient. It has different properties from black pepper, but in this case, if you don't have white pepper handy, because it is a specialized spice, go ahead and use black pepper. Same purpose, just different taste profile. So I'm just going to add about a teaspoon of white pepper.
Jackie, we have another question. How about shrimp? Do we add it now, or can it be another ingredient?
Yeah, so shrimp, you can definitely add shrimp. For the shrimp, I would suggest, you know, also mincing that as finely as you can. You can add that. You can add that right now. You can add that right now if it is convenient. If you don't have shrimp handy yet, you can save that a little bit for the end, just because shrimp is easy to flavor. But you can add that right now while we're seasoning everything.
Jackie, can I interject with an update about the tofu? Sure,
go ahead. And so we'll pass it over to the vegan recipe.
Thank you. So what happened here is we pressed our tofu the way Braden usually does it, and it was in a lump. But then I tried to see how much water I could get out of it if I just sort of squeezed it with my hands, and I got a fair amount out, which means that especially if we're not cooking it to get the water out, we definitely want to make sure we squeeze it with our hands if you don't have a tofu press. Thanks. Back to you, Jackie.
So at this point, I've got the salt and the ginger and the white pepper mixed in. I'm going to go ahead and move forward to wet seasonings. So our wet seasonings will be light soy sauce. What I have right here is seafood-based soy sauce, but it's the same purpose, light soy sauce. I have sesame oil, and we have Shaoxing rice wine. So rice wine, I'll go ahead and start with this. Rice wine serves the same purpose as ginger, right? It's to take out the gaminess of meat. And this is probably one of the other essential ingredients of Chinese cooking, to take out that gaminess. So I'm gonna go ahead and add about 1 to 2 teaspoons of cooking wine. Go ahead and give that a mix. And you see, this is the portion where we're adding moisture into our filling. So this is why we had to make that consideration about the cabbage earlier. So go ahead and give that a mix, but because it's liquid, you know, you don't have to give too much focus, as we're going to be mixing as we add more and more. Once I give that a rough mix, I'm going to add soy sauce. Soy sauce is going to be 2 teaspoons. I'm just going to give that a nice splash of soy sauce, about 2 teaspoons. Mix that up. All right, and then we're going to add our final liquid component, which is sesame oil. So sesame oil has a very distinctive, aroma. If you like sesame oil, you can add, 2 teaspoons. If you're a little averse to sesame oil, you can add 1 teaspoon. But this also addresses the question about lean meat. So this will serve as your fat to counterbalance the lean meat. So this will help hold the flavor in the filling. So go ahead and add 1 to 2 teaspoons.
Jackie, we have a question. Is that the same as rice wine vinegar?
Rice wine vinegar, no, it's not the same. Vinegar has very sharp taste, so don't add rice wine vinegar. If you don't have rice wine at home, if you have dry sherry, that's a typical Western counterpart to rice wine. But if not, if you don't have either of those, do not worry. Just add a little bit more pepper, perhaps a little bit more ginger, right? And that'll help counterbalance the sharpness of the gaminess of the.
We have a question from Lisa. Why is he saying teaspoons? Can someone who is monitoring the tech put the ingredients list that I sent into the chat, please? We have a newcomer. Also, Jackie, are you done here?
Yes, well, just one last component. The last component is cabbage. And at this point, a lot of the liquid will be out of the cabbage. So I'm going to go pour out the cabbage into the sink. And at the same time, I'm going to squeeze as much of the moisture out. And once you squeeze as much of the moisture out, you see that excess liquid coming out. I'm going to squeeze as much out as possible. I'm going to put in all the cabbage, mix it up, and the pork mixture is ready to go.
Great, thank you so much. We have 3 more minutes, and Braden will spend a little time showing us how he mixes up the ingredients for the vegan recipe. And if you're doing the jackfruit, just do it with the tofu, with the jackfruit instead of the tofu. So Lisa says, for Shaoxing wine and soy sauce, the ingredient list says tablespoons, but Jackie says teaspoons. Do you have something to say about that, Jackie?
Yeah, so if you're using tablespoons, just know that a tablespoon is about 3 teaspoons. If you feel that you've added too many seasonings, you can put that in the cabbage. So the cabbage can soak up the flavor.
So, right, so the recipe says 2 tablespoons Shaoxing wine and 2 tablespoons soy sauce. So they added tablespoons. So how do you feel about that?
It should be fine. Dumpling mixtures are pretty forgiving. So if anything, you guys can try the filling. It's out to see if the flavoring is to your liking. In that case, you can once all the filling is done, you can just take the pan, take a little bit.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Jackie. I want to apologize. It's 2 more minutes, and we don't want to run into the next one. So can Braden have it for 2 minutes, and then if you have questions, we'll answer you by text after. Yes, but the next person will do it.
Okay, so there's nothing special for the. Do I mix everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would do, as stated before, is we have the plain tofu here. I would just add the seasonings and all that at this step. So for this recipe, we have a tablespoon of soy sauce, a tablespoon of hoisin sauce, and 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. So I would just do that now. First.
Say what you're doing as you're doing it, please.
Okay, so I'm doing the hoisin sauce first. 1 tablespoon.
We're doubling it, remember, please.
Oh, okay. So then
And
I'm doing
out?
2.
We
Yeah.
were not out.
We were kind of. Okay, so that's 1 tablespoon.
Try to glean some from here.
Okay, I'll do. So that would be 2 tablespoons of soy sauce because we're doubling.
Okay, so it's 4:30. So you have It's 4:30. We're going to try to wrap this in 1 minute. Thank you.
All right, and this is the sesame oil. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons. Since we're doubling, I'll do 4. So that's 1 1/3 tablespoon.
And so the recipe, can we put the recipe for the vegetarian vegan into the chat? And basically, that's what we're doing, is following those ingredients for the rest of it. The major part of it was this discussion was the preparation of the cabbage and the tofu and the jackfruit. So hopefully you guys got enough out of that. But so we're going to continue with our ginger and all the rest of our seasonings to prepare our own meal. And we'll take questions in the chat, but we need to move on to Mary. Is that Mary or is that Susan?
Susan.
Susan. Thank you, Susan. So I'm going to mute and we'll continue. Thank you.